As seen on my student ID, I am Monique Minavini Hull, and I will be bringing my presentation now. Welcome to this in-service today. I'm Monique Hull, the Indigenous mental health educator, and today our focus will be intergenerational trauma. I would first like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we stand here at Cumberland Psychiatric Hospital, the Darug people of the Darug Nation. We acknowledge and pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and that sovereignty was never ceded, always was, and will be Aboriginal land. Jumping right into it, I'm sure we are all aware of the health discrepancy between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Well, just to confirm this, I would like to give you some shocking facts from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. 41% of Aboriginal households experience food insecurity due to a lack of money for food at some time in the last 12 months during the financial year of 2022 to 2023. Lack of good food or minimal amounts of food can lead to poor nutrition and even malnutrition, which generally can lead to poor health. This is just one of many health disadvantages experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia today. These health disadvantages, combined with the 8-year life expectancy difference between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, is called the gap. Closing the Gap campaign is an ongoing initiative that has been developed for addressing these key disadvantages in health outcomes and will hopefully assist in bridging the gap. Today, however, we will be looking at the health disadvantage statistic of 3 in 10 people aged 18 and over, 30%, experience high or very high levels of physiological distress in the last 4 weeks during 2022, about the same as 2018, 2019, 31%. I contribute to this statistic, and the focus of my in-service today is intergenerational trauma. I want you all to have a think what you envision what intergenerational trauma means and what it might have and what you might have seen in mainstream media. For examples, movies such as The Rabbit-Proof Fence or The Sapphires, which highlights intergenerational trauma. I hope after this in-service, more knowledge will be gained on intergenerational trauma in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. As stated by Fortunana et al. 2021, subsequent generations can feel the impact of traumatic experience that did not occur in their lifetime. This is intergenerational trauma. It is a psychological effect of trauma that an individual experiences and then is passed down to future generations. Also perfectly put by Sophie Isabel et al. 2021, the authors of Community Mental Health Journal. This is a direct quote. Intergenerational trauma is a discrete form of trauma which occurs when traumatic effects are passed down across generations without exposure to the original event. Intergenerational trauma can lead to Indigenous communities mistrusting institutions, such as hospitals, which are normally funded and managed by the government. This is due to some government initiatives which have caused historical trauma, for example, the stolen generation. This mistrust of government can be passed down from generation to generation because they choose not to access these services. They therefore further isolating the Indigenous community from receiving equitable health outcomes. This mistrust by Indigenous people of services provided by public hospitals is sometimes due to racism they experience. When racism is present, it can make the Indigenous community withdraw access to these health services providers. Racism can also create another barrier of feeling discriminated against. These two barriers will possibly not ensure equitable outcomes for this community. Next up for my in-service, I'll be discussing the role that you as a nurse can have in addressing the intergenerational trauma and strategies that can be implemented in the workplace to address this ever-prevalent issue. Under Nurses Code of Ethics, specifically 1.8, the end sentence states, nurses support and respect the dignity and universal rights of all people. And 4.1, nurses value health care as a human right, affirming the right for universal access to health care for all. By upholding this code of ethics, no matter the race or culture of an individual who is under your care, they should always receive equitable health services from you. The role of a nurse in addressing intergenerational trauma is to provide healthcare with cultural safety. The first step to cultural safety is cultural awareness. To be educated and aware of the Indigenous members of the community in your workplace. The next step is to be culturally sensitive, which includes but not limited to appropriate communication by using the correct terminology, avoiding stereotypes and preconceived notions about First Nations community. This involves self-reflection by each participant in this room to reflect on their own conscious and unconscious biased attitudes and beliefs to ensure that you are always professional when providing healthcare services to all communities. This leads to being culturally competent, which includes respecting and documenting cultural preferences into healthcare plans, acquiring specific education on the Indigenous community and using that to build a therapeutic and holistic relationship with the individual. Realistic strategies that can be implemented in this workplace at Cumberland Psychiatric Hospital is that you as a nurse must first understand there is different forms of trauma and intergenerational trauma is just one type as clearly stated by Menzies 2019. Health and social challenges occur because the colonized Indigenous communities will experience poor health literacy and addiction. Understanding where these issues stem from in the case of intergenerational trauma can be addressed by implementing a culturally sensitive practice and already mentioned some strategies can be using correct terminology in all your communication and interacting with individuals from the community. The correct interactions with individual from community. The correct terminology encompasses being respectful to the community, not using derogative abbreviations or words. This includes stating the full title of the community, which is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. The only appropriate simplification is Aboriginal. Two other acceptable terminologies is First Nations and Indigenous. It is also important to validate their mistrust for hospitals, providing services and working with the individual to rebuild their trust and confidence that a quality service will be provided in a non-threatening environment. Other ways that this can also be achieved is by providing relevant information in accessible formats, offering one or more support in the areas of service provision, a hand-over-hand guidance through the new journey assisted with making informed decisions and choices, enabling the individual to feel empowered by being in the center of all decision making in relation to their care, which is a holistic approach. In conclusion, I hope I've highlighted the important roles that nurses play by implementing the strategies that I have discussed to help minimize the health disadvantage experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia. I would like to thank you all for coming to this in-service today. I hope you have gained some knowledge on intergenerational trauma. Thank you for being here today.